Tae-won Kim stood quietly at Gate 37 of Incheon International Airport. He checked his watch again. The flight to New York would leave in 30 minutes, but he was still not on the plane. Around him, other passengers hurried through the gate, showing their boarding passes and walking onto the jet bridge. No one paid much attention to the tall black man in the navy blue suit who waited patiently at the counter. "I'm sorry, sir. There seems to be a problem with your documents," said Soo-jin, the young woman at the gate. She looked at his passport again, then at her computer screen. Her fingers tapped nervously on the keyboard. Tae-won nodded. He was used to this. As the only black Korean in the boarding area, he often faced extra questions and longer waits. "My papers are fine," he said in perfect Korean. His voice was deep and calm. "Please check again." Soo-jin looked uncomfortable. She glanced at her supervisor, an older man named Do-hyun who stood nearby watching them. Do-hyun stepped forward. "Sir, our system is flagging your passport. We need to do some extra checks. It might take some time." Tae-won's face showed no emotion. "The flight leaves soon. I have an important meeting in New York tomorrow morning." "I understand, but security protocols must be followed," Do-hyun said firmly. "Perhaps you would like to wait in our office while we sort this out." People in the waiting area began to notice what was happening. Some looked away quickly when Tae-won glanced in their direction. Others stared openly, curious about the well-dressed black man speaking Korean so fluently. An elderly woman sitting nearby whispered to her husband, "Why are they giving him trouble? Is it because he's foreign?" A young man had already taken out his phone and was recording the scene. "Another case of airport discrimination," he muttered to his friend. "This will get views online." Tae-won heard them all. His hearing was much better than anyone realized. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another document. "Perhaps this will help," he said, sliding a diplomatic ID card across the counter. Soo-jin's eyes widened. "You work for the government?" "In a manner of speaking," Tae-won replied. "Please call Director Hyun-woo at this number. He will confirm my identity." Do-hyun took the card and examined it carefully. "This looks authentic, but I've never seen this department before. What is the Special Diplomatic Relations Division?" "It's new," Tae-won said simply, "and classified." By now, most of the passengers for the New York flight had boarded. Only a few stragglers remained in the gate area, and all of them were watching the drama unfold with interest. Do-hyun picked up a phone and dialed the number on the diplomatic ID. He turned away to speak privately, but Tae-won could still hear every word. "Yes, this is Senior Gate Agent Do-hyun at Incheon International Airport, Gate 37. We have a passenger named Tae-won Kim with a diplomatic ID. Yes, I understand, but our system has flagged his passport and—" "What?" "But sir, I can't just—" "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." Do-hyun's face had gone pale. He returned to the counter and handed the ID back to Tae-won with a small bow. "My apologies, sir. It seems there was a misunderstanding. We'll board you right away." But before Soo-jin could process his boarding pass, another problem arose. Two airport security officers approached the gate, moving quickly through the waiting area. "We need to speak with that passenger," the taller officer said, pointing at Tae-won. "There's been a security alert." Do-hyun stepped between them and Tae-won. "I've just received clearance from the highest level. This passenger is to board immediately." "Our orders come directly from Airport Security Command," the officer insisted. "The facial recognition system has flagged him as a person of interest." Tae-won remained calm, watching the situation develop with curious eyes. He seemed more interested than concerned, as if observing an experiment. "What seems to be the problem?" a new voice asked. Everyone turned to see a middle-aged Korean man in a dark suit walking briskly toward them. His name was Jin-ho Park, though none of the airport staff knew that yet. "This is an airport security matter, sir," the officer said. "Please step back." Jin-ho smiled politely and pulled out an ID card that made both security officers stand straighter. I believe it's my matter now. I'm Director Jin-Ho Park, Korean Intelligence Services, Extraterrestrial Relations Division. A heavy silence fell over the gate area. The few remaining passengers exchanged confused glances. Did he say extraterrestrial? There must be some mistake, the security officer said, his confidence fading. The only mistake, Jin-Ho said loudly enough for everyone to hear, is delaying a diplomatic representative of the Galactic Council and potentially causing an interstellar incident. Now the murmurs began in earnest. People pulled out phones to record what was happening. Even Do-hyun and Soo-jin stood frozen, trying to process what they had just heard. Jin-Ho turned to Ta-won and bowed deeply. Ambassador, my sincerest apologies for this unfortunate situation. Your transport is ready if you prefer to use our secure facilities instead of the commercial flight. Ta-won studied Jin-Ho's face for a moment, then nodded. Thank you, Director Park. I believe that would be best now. A young woman who had been filming the entire exchange stepped forward. Excuse me, but did you say Galactic Council? What does that mean? Jin-Ho looked at Ta-won, who gave a slight nod of permission. It means, Jin-Ho said carefully, that today is a historic day for humanity, and you are among the first to witness it. Ta-won stepped away from the counter and addressed the small crowd directly. My name is Ta-won Kim. The form you see before you is modeled after human biology, but I am not human. I am a representative of the Nari people and the wider Galactic Council. The shock silenced everyone. In the quiet, Ta-won reached into his pocket and removed a small silver device. When he activated it, a holographic seal appeared above his palm, a complex, shimmering symbol that seemed to move in impossible ways. For 3 years, I have lived among you as a Korean citizen. My appearance was chosen deliberately, someone who might face discrimination based on human notions of race. It was part of our assessment of Earth's readiness for formal contact. One brave soul found his voice. You're saying you're an alien. Ta-won smiled for the first time. I am a visitor from another world, yes, one of several living quietly among you. The security officers had backed away, speaking urgently into their radios. Within minutes, more officials arrived, high-ranking airport administrators, police, and government agents. The remaining passengers were escorted to another gate for their flight, though many refused to leave, not wanting to miss this momentous event. Jin-Ho addressed the growing crowd of officials. The president has been notified and is on his way. United Nations representatives are being contacted. This area is now under government control. No one leaves, and no information goes out until official channels have been established. But it was too late for that. The videos were already spreading online like wildfire. By the time airport security sealed off Gate 37, the news that an apparent extraterrestrial had been denied boarding on a flight at Incheon Airport had reached millions. Ta-won observed it all with interest. The Nari had debated for decades about how to reveal themselves to humanity. In the end, they had decided that a small, unplanned revelation might be best, allowing human reactions to unfold naturally rather than in a carefully managed setting. Director Park, Ta-won said quietly as they were escorted to a private room, your people are reacting better than expected. Jin-Ho, one of only 12 humans on Earth who had known the truth before today, nodded. We are full of surprises, Ambassador. That's what I've been telling your council for years. Indeed, Ta-won replied. That capacity to adapt, to accept the unimaginable. It's why we're here. The stars await humanity, Director Park. Today is just the first step. Behind them, Gate 37, where history had just changed forever, was sealed off with security tape. The ordinary airport gate would soon become a museum piece, marking the spot where humanity first learned they were not alone in the universe. 2 hours after the incident at Gate 37, Ta-won sat in the airport's VIP lounge. The room, normally used for visiting celebrities and government officials, was now the center of a growing storm. Outside, news vans lined the airport entrance. Inside, high-ranking officials rushed back and forth, making calls and preparing statements. Taiwan watched them calmly. He sipped water from a glass and waited. Beside him sat Jin-ho, who kept checking his phone for updates. "The president will be here in 15 minutes, Jin-ho said. "The American ambassador is also on his way. The United Nations Security Council is holding an emergency meeting." Taiwan nodded. "All expected. How are people reacting outside?" Jin-ho showed him his phone screen. News websites, social media, and video platforms were exploding with activity. The first videos from the airport had spread everywhere. Some people called them fake. Others believed. Debates raged online. "Mixed reactions, as we predicted," Jin-ho said, "but no widespread panic so far." The door opened, and a group of serious-looking men and women entered. They wore suits and carried folders and tablets. At their center was President Han, looking both tired and alert. Everyone in the room stood and bowed, except Taiwan. He remained seated, following the protocol of his own world. Among the Nari, leaders approached visitors, not the other way around. President Han walked directly to Taiwan and gave a small bow. "Ambassador, this is unexpected." "Is it?" Taiwan asked with a slight smile. "Your government has known about us for 6 months." Some of the officials looked surprised at this statement. Clearly, the knowledge had been limited to very few people. "Only 5 people in my administration were told," President Han explained. "We agreed to wait for your people to decide when and how to reveal yourselves." "The time is now," Taiwan said simply. Today's incident was no accident. Jin-ho looked at Taiwan with surprise. "You planned this?" "Not exactly," Taiwan replied. "But we did ensure that facial recognition would flag me today. We needed to see how your people would react in an unplanned situation." President Han motioned for everyone to sit. The officials arranged themselves around the large table, all eyes fixed on Taiwan. "I think it's time you told us more about who you really are," the president said. Taiwan nodded and reached again for the silver device in his pocket. This time, when he activated it, the hologram expanded to fill the center of the table. It showed a star system with 7 planets. "My home is the 3rd planet in this system, which you call HD 10,180. We call it Nari home. Our civilization is over 12,000 years old, far older than yours." The officials stared at the detailed hologram. Some reached out as if to touch it, then pulled back. "How many of you are here on Earth?" asked a woman who was the National Security Advisor. 14 of us are currently on your planet, each living as a citizen of a different nation," Taiwan explained. "Each of us chose to appear as someone who might face discrimination in that society." "A test," Jin-ho said, understanding dawning on his face. "Yes. We needed to know if humanity was ready to join the wider community of intelligent species. Your treatment of those who look or act differently from the majority tells us much about your readiness." President Han leaned forward. "And what have you learned?" Taiwan's expression remained neutral. "That humans are complex. You struggle with prejudice, yes, but many of you fight against it. You recognize it as wrong, even when you fail to overcome it. This gives us hope." A man at the far end of the table cleared his throat. "Excuse me, but are we supposed to believe that you just look exactly like a human?" "That seems convenient." Taiwan turned to him. "My true form would be disturbing to most humans. This body was grown specifically for my mission here, using human DNA as a template but modified to house my consciousness." "Can you show us your real form?" the man pressed. Jin-ho interrupted. "I don't think that's necessary right now." "No, it's a fair question," Taiwan said. He touched a different control on his device. "I cannot physically transform, but I can show you a projection." The hologram changed to show a tall, slender being. It had 4 arms and smooth bluish skin. Its head was larger than a human's, with large, dark eyes and no visible nose or mouth. Many in the room gasped. "This is the form I was born in," Tai-1 explained, turning off the projection. "But my consciousness, myself, remains the same regardless of physical form." A heavy silence filled the room. The reality of what they were facing seemed to hit everyone at once. This wasn't just a strange man with advanced technology. This was truly a being from another world. "Why now?" President Han finally asked. "Why reveal yourself today?" "Because humanity stands at a crossroads," Tai-1 said. "Your technology has advanced to the point where you will soon be capable of faster-than-light travel. When that happens, you will join the wider universe whether you are ready or not. We prefer to guide that process." Just then, the door opened again. A young aide rushed in and whispered something to the president. His face grew serious. "It seems someone at the gate recorded our visitor's holographic demonstration and posted it online. The footage has gone viral. There's no containing this now." Tai-1 nodded. "Good. Secrecy was never our goal. Understanding is." "What happens next?" Jinho asked. "A formal introduction." Tai-1 replied. "My colleagues around the world are revealing themselves as we speak. In 3 days, a Nari ship will enter Earth orbit openly, visible to all. We will request a meeting with the United Nations General Assembly." The officials exchanged nervous glances. One of them, the defense minister, spoke up. "And if we're not ready? If we ask for more time?" Tai-1 looked at him with those calm, deep eyes. "Time for what, minister? To prepare your weapons? To sow fear among your people? The Galactic Council has strict rules about contact with developing worlds. We come in peace, but we also come with expectations." "Which are?" President Han asked. "That you will listen, that you will learn, that you will begin to see beyond your planet's borders and understand your place in a much larger community." Outside the VIP lounge, the airport had become a circus. News crews pushed against police barriers. People gathered with signs ranging from "Welcome Alien Friends" to "Hoax" to "The End is Near." Security personnel struggled to maintain order. Inside, Tai-1 stood and straightened his suit. "It's time to address your people directly. The longer we wait, the more fear will grow." President Han nodded slowly. "We'll set up a press conference, but I have one more question first." He looked directly into Tai-1's eyes. "Are there others besides the Nari? Other species watching us?" Tai-1 smiled slightly. "The universe is vast, President Han. The Galactic Council includes 317 different intelligent species. Earth has been observed by many of them for centuries." This information sent a new wave of shock through the room. The officials whispered among themselves, some looking frightened, others excited. "And these other species?" Jinho asked. "Are they all peaceful?" "Most are," Tai-1 said. "But not all, which is why humanity needs friends among the stars." He walked toward the door. "Shall we begin?" As they prepared to face the world's press, Mike Young, a veteran reporter who had been granted exclusive first access, approached Tai-1 with a recorder in hand. "Just one question before we start officially," she said. "Why did you choose to appear as you did, as a Black Korean man?" Tai-1 considered her question carefully. "Because boundaries between human groups fascinate us. Those who live at these boundaries often see truths that others miss. And because I wanted to know if your people could look beyond appearance to see the person within." He paused. "Earth has much to learn about difference, Mike Young. Today is your first lesson on a much larger scale." As they walked toward the press room, Tai-1 knew that humanity's greatest test was just beginning. The revelation was only the first step. What came next would determine whether humans would join the stars or remain isolated on their small blue planet. Behind him, the officials of one small nation tried to prepare for a future none of them had imagined when they woke up that morning. The main conference room of Incheon International Airport had never held so many people. Reporters filled every seat. Camera operators stood along the walls. Outside, large screens had been set up so the growing crowd could watch. Tae-won Kim, now known to the world as an alien ambassador, sat at the center of a long table. President Han sat to his right. Jin-ho and other officials filled the remaining seats. The room buzzed with excited voices and the clicks of cameras. President Han stood and raised his hands for quiet. The room slowly fell silent. Today marks a historic moment for our nation and for all humanity, he began. We are not alone in the universe, and our visitors have been among us for some time. He turned to Tae-won, who stood up. The cameras flashed rapidly. My name, as you know it, is Tae-won Kim, he said in a clear voice. I am a diplomatic representative of the Nari people and the Galactic Council. For 3 Earth years, I have lived among you, learning your customs, your languages, and your hearts. A reporter raised her hand. Why did you hide among us? Why not announce yourselves from the start? Tae-won nodded as if he expected this question. When meeting a new species, it is important to learn about them in their natural state. If we had arrived in our ships, hovering over your cities, how would you have behaved? Would we have seen the true humanity, or a humanity reacting to fear and shock? Another reporter called out, Are there more like you on Earth? Yes. 14 Nari representatives live on Earth, each in different countries. Like me, they have taken human form and live among you as ordinary citizens. The room exploded with questions. Everyone wanted to know who the other aliens were, where they lived, what they looked like. President Han called for order. When the room quieted again, Tae-won continued. My colleagues are revealing themselves to their host governments as we speak. By tomorrow, all will be known. Mike Young, the veteran reporter who had spoken with Tae-won earlier, stood up. You said you've been studying us. What have you learned? And what happens now? Tae-won smiled slightly. What have we learned? That humans are complex. You fight wars yet write poetry about peace. You destroy parts of your planet yet work to save others. You discriminate against those who look different, yet many of you fight against such treatment. He walked around the table to stand directly before the reporters. As for what happens now, that depends on you. In 3 days, a Nari ship will arrive in Earth orbit. It will be visible to all. We will request a meeting with your United Nations. A man in the back called out, Are you planning to take over our planet? Jin-ho frowned at the question, but Tae-won remained calm. No, the Galactic Council has strict rules about respecting the independence of all intelligent species. We come to offer friendship and knowledge, not conquest. What do you want from us? Asked another reporter. Nothing you are not willing to give. Knowledge, culture, art, music, and eventually, when you are ready, partnership. The questions continued for over an hour. Tae-won answered each one patiently. He explained that the Nari had been observing Earth for centuries, watching human development with interest. Your species advances quickly, he said. In just a few hundred years, you went from horse-drawn carriages to space exploration. This rapid development caught our attention. Is that why you're here now? Mi-kyung asked. Because of our technology. Partly, Tae-won admitted. Your scientists are close to discovering principles that will lead to faster-than-light travel. When that happens, you will be able to reach other star systems. The Galactic Council prefers to establish contact before such discoveries to help guide new species into the wider community. As the press conference continued, screens around the world showed Tae-won's face and words. In New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and 1,000 other cities, people gathered in public places to watch. Some celebrated, some prayed, some protested, but most simply watched in wonder. In a small research facility outside Seoul, a scientist named Han-gil watched the broadcast with special interest. For years, his team had been working on an experimental drive system that seemed to bend the rules of physics. Now he understood why their project had received sudden increased funding 6 months ago. Someone in the government had known what was coming. Back at the airport, the press conference was winding down. President Han announced that Taiwan would be given official diplomatic status and protection. One final question, called a young reporter. Why did you choose to appear as you did? As a black Korean man. Taiwan looked thoughtful. Each Nari representative chose a form that would experience some level of discrimination or attention in their host country. We wanted to understand how humans treat those who are different, those who stand out. The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. And what did you learn from that choice? The reporter pressed. That humanity has far to go in accepting difference, Taiwan said honestly, but also that many of you recognize this failing and work to overcome it. This gives us hope. After the press conference, Taiwan was escorted to a secure government facility. For his safety, officials said, though Taiwan knew he was in no danger from humans, still, he agreed to the arrangement. It would give him time to communicate with his fellow Nari representatives and prepare for the arrival of their ship. That evening, as Taiwan sat in his new quarters, Jin Ho came to visit him. The world has gone crazy, Jin Ho said, showing Taiwan his phone. Your revelation is all anyone can talk about. Religious leaders are making statements. Scientists are publishing theories about your people. Children are drawing pictures of blue aliens with 4 arms. Taiwan smiled. This excitement is natural. It will settle. Will it? Jin Ho didn't seem convinced. Humanity just learned we're not alone. Nothing will ever be the same. Change is not always bad, Taiwan said. Your people have lived in isolation, thinking yourselves alone in the universe. Now you know differently. This knowledge will transform your civilization. Jin Ho sat down across from Taiwan. There's something I don't understand. If you can take human form so perfectly, how did the airport security system flag you? What gave you away? Taiwan's eyes showed amusement. We allowed it to happen. The time had come for revelation. But why at an airport? Why not something more official? Because we wanted a genuine reaction, Taiwan explained. Not a carefully managed government announcement, but a real moment of human behavior. The young man who recorded the incident, the elderly couple who questioned the discrimination, the security officers following orders, the boarding agent caught between rules and fairness. All of them showed aspects of humanity in that moment. Jin Ho considered this. So it was all a test. Not a test. An opportunity to see humanity's true face. That night, as Taiwan meditated in the traditional Nari way, he reflected on the day's events. His people had debated for decades about when and how to reveal themselves to humans. Some had argued that humanity was too violent, too divided to join the galactic community. Others saw potential in the young species. In the end, the decision had been made to live among humans first, to understand them from within their own societies. Taiwan had volunteered immediately. The prospect of experiencing life as a human fascinated him. What he hadn't expected was how attached he would become to his human form, to his human life. He had friends who knew him only as Taiwan Kim, the university professor with the unusual background. He enjoyed Korean food, Korean music, even Korean television dramas. Part of him would miss this simple life when his diplomatic duties began in earnest. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more challenges. The other Nari representatives were reporting similar reactions around the world: surprise, fear, wonder, and countless questions. In 3 days, when the Nari ship arrived, humanity would face the undeniable proof that the universe was full of intelligent life. Taiwan opened his eyes. On his desk sat a small plant, a gift from a student last year. For a professor who always helps us see things differently, the card had said. The irony made him smile now. Seeing things differently, that was what humanity was about to experience on a scale never before imagined. And Taiwan would be their guide to this new reality. 3 days passed quickly. The world both changed completely and stayed surprisingly normal. People still went to work. Children still attended school. But now, Everyone talked about the same thing. Aliens were real, and they had been living among us. On the morning of the third day, Taiwan stood on the roof of the United Nations building in New York. Around him stood world leaders, scientists, military officials, and religious figures. All eyes looked up at the sky. "It will be visible any moment now," Taiwan said calmly. Jin Ho, who had flown with him from Korea, checked his watch nervously. "Will it be big? Will people panic when they see it?" "The ship is designed to appear non-threatening," Taiwan replied. "And yes, it will be quite large." As if on cue, a shadow appeared high in the sky. At first, it looked like a small cloud, but quickly it grew larger. People in the streets below began to point upward. Car horns honked. Some people shouted. Others stood in silent awe. The Nari ship finally stopped moving when it was directly over the Atlantic Ocean, about 100 miles east of New York. It was massive, at least a mile across, and shaped like a perfect disk. Its surface shimmered with a blue-silver light that seemed to change patterns as they watched. "It's beautiful," whispered the Secretary General of the United Nations. Taiwan nodded. "It is one of our older vessels, actually, a diplomatic carrier, not a scientific or military ship." The word military made several officials exchange nervous glances. "Do not worry," Taiwan assured them. "We come in peace, as I have said from the beginning." Screens had been set up on the roof to show news coverage from around the world. People everywhere were seeing the ship. In some places, there was fear. In others, celebration. Many held signs welcoming the aliens to Earth. Taiwan's communication device made a soft chiming sound. He checked it and smiled. "The delegation is ready to descend. With your permission, Secretary General." The man nodded quickly. "Yes, of course. We're ready." From the bottom of the massive ship, a smaller craft appeared. It was about the size of a bus and glowed with the same blue-silver light. It descended slowly toward the United Nations building. "Only 3 representatives will come down," Taiwan explained. "The High Counselor, the Science Director, and the Cultural Attaché. I will introduce you." The small craft landed gently on the wide roof. There was a moment of tense silence. Then, a door opened in the side of the craft. Light poured out, making it hard to see inside. 3 figures stepped out. They wore flowing robes of a material that seemed to shift and move like liquid. Their faces were human, but there was something not quite right about them. Their movements were too smooth, their features too perfect. Taiwan stepped forward and bowed deeply to the visitors. "High Counselor, I present to you the leaders of Earth," he said in English. Then he switched to a musical language no human had ever heard before. The tallest of the 3 visitors nodded and spoke in perfect English. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Kelin, High Counselor of the Nari and representative of the Galactic Council. We have looked forward to this meeting for many years." The Secretary General stepped forward, his hand extended. "On behalf of all humanity, welcome to Earth." Kalin looked at the offered hand, then carefully reached out to shake it. "Your custom of hand greeting." "Yes, we have studied this." The introductions continued. The science director was named Mira, a woman with silver hair and intense blue eyes. The cultural attaché was Da Hyun, younger looking than the others, with a friendly smile. As they moved inside for the formal meeting, Taiwan felt a sense of pride. So far, humans were handling this historic moment with dignity. The careful work of the Nari observers had paid off. Humanity had been prepared, slowly and carefully, for this moment. In the Grand Hall of the United Nations, representatives from every nation waited. The room fell silent as the Nari delegation entered. Cameras broadcast the scene to billions of people watching around the world. High Counselor Kellen took the main podium. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. "People of Earth, today marks the end of your cosmic isolation. For thousands of years, your species has looked to the stars and wondered if you were alone. Today, you learn that you are part of a vast community of intelligent life." She explained that the Galactic Council included 317 different species from across the galaxy. Some were very similar to humans. Others were so different that humans would struggle to understand their very nature. The universe is full of wonders beyond your imagination, Caitlin continued. Worlds with rings of ice that shine like rainbows, oceans deeper than your entire planet, life forms that exist as pure energy or as collective minds spanning entire star systems. The hall remained absolutely silent. Everyone was captivated. But with this knowledge comes responsibility. The Galactic Council does not admit new species lightly. Each must demonstrate their readiness. Now the mood in the room shifted. People looked at each other nervously. What did readiness mean? Was this a test? Had humanity already passed or failed? Kaelin seemed to sense the anxiety. Do not fear. We have been watching and learning about your species for centuries. The 14 Neri who have lived among you these past years were the final stage of our assessment. Taiwan stepped forward. Each of us chose to live as someone who might face challenges in human society. Some took the form of racial minorities. Others lived with disabilities. Some chose to be part of religious or cultural groups that faced discrimination. Science Director Mira added, "We wanted to understand how your species treats difference. Do you reject those who are not like the majority, or do you find ways to include everyone?" A murmur ran through the crowd. Many people looked uncomfortable. "We saw both tendencies in your societies," Cultural Attaché Dahyun said. "You have laws against discrimination, yet it still exists. You speak of equality, yet many suffer from unequal treatment." The Secretary General cleared his throat. "We acknowledge our imperfections. Humanity is still evolving, still learning to be better." High Counselor Kellen nodded. "This honesty serves you well. No species is perfect, not even the Nari. What matters is your willingness to improve." She touched a device on her wrist, and a large hologram appeared above the hall. It showed Earth, but with glowing points of light scattered across it. 14 in total. These are the locations where our representatives revealed themselves. In each place, we observed the reactions of humans. How did you respond to learning that someone you thought was simply different was, in fact, entirely alien? A hologram zoomed in on Incheon Airport, showing the scene from days earlier when Taiwan revealed his true nature. In most locations, we saw a mixture of fear and wonder, but we also saw something important, a capacity for growth. When faced with the ultimate other, a being from another world, most humans responded with curiosity rather than hostility. The Secretary General smiled slightly. "So we passed your test." "Not a test," Taiwan corrected. "An observation. And yes, humanity has shown great promise." High Counselor Kellen raised her hands, and a hologram changed to show the galaxy, with thousands of stars connected by lines of light. The Galactic Council has voted. Earth will be granted provisional membership, with full status to be determined in 50 Earth years. During this time, we will share knowledge with you, medical advances, sustainable energy, agricultural techniques, not advanced weapons or technologies that could harm your world if misused. The hall erupted in applause. Provisional membership. It was more than most had hoped for. As the formal proceedings continued, Taiwan found Jinho standing near a window, looking out at the Nari ship hovering in the distance. "So what happens to you now?" Jinho asked. "Will you return to your original form? Go back to your world?" Taiwan smiled. "I have grown fond of this form, and of Earth. The Council has asked me to stay as the first official ambassador to your planet. If your government approves, of course." Jinho laughed. "I think that can be arranged, though you might need a new cover story. Black Korean man stopped at airport turns out to be alien is all over the internet. Perhaps I'll simply be myself now," Taiwan said. "No more hiding." Later that day, as the sun set over New York, Taiwan stood at the window of his hotel room. Below, people filled the streets, looking up at the Nari ship that glowed against the darkening sky. Some held signs, "Welcome to Earth," And we come in peace, and one universe, many people. Taiwan thought about his first day on Earth, 3 years ago. How strange everything had seemed, how confusing human customs and emotions had been. And now he felt almost human himself. His communication device chimed. It was a message from Kelin. You have done well, Ambassador. Earth's journey to the stars has begun. Taiwan looked back at the crowds below. Humanity's cosmic trial was not over. It had only just begun. But today, on this historic day, they had taken their first step into a larger universe, and he would be there to guide them.